welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my November reading wrap-up. I feel like I haven't done a wrap-up in a while, and I was thinking that I wasn't going to do one this month either because I read lots of these books in vlogs, but there's still books that I want to talk about and recap on, so I'm still going to do my November reading wrap-up. And then I was also thinking maybe I'll do a December TBR just for fun. I feel like I really want to get through my holiday reads, Christmas books in December, and I kind of just want to, I don't know, read anything that I feel like in December, but also picking a TBR is just always fun, so maybe I'll do that after. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about, I am actually not going in order at all because I finished this book last night and I just really wanted to talk about it. The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. This book really broke me and put me back together. One thing I've noticed about Kristin Hannah books, I've only read one other Kristin Hannah book, so maybe I can't speak too soon, but one thing that I've noticed is that she will rip you to pieces just to give you a happy ending, but you have to go through a lot before you get to that happy ending. That happy ending doesn't come without lots of consequences for the characters, and there's so much pain, and the happy ending almost doesn't even really feel like such a happy ending because it's just we've been through so much. Basically, this book is about a family, a mother, a father, and a little girl named Lenny. She's 13 when this book starts, and it kind of goes throughout her life all the way until she's 25, and she's constantly moving around because her father has PTSD from serving in Vietnam, and he has nightmares, and he's just constantly needing new ideas, new environments, and he's restless, gets angry, he's abusive. You go through a lot with them from the beginning of this story, and you kind of just see how his mood swings are so intense, and you see how both the mother and Lenny try to help him through such a dark time. So Lenny's mother, Cora, would do anything for her husband, so when he decides he wants to move to Alaska and live off the land, the reason he's moving to Alaska, or the reason the idea came to him, is because someone that he served with left him a piece of land in Alaska, and he's like, yeah, drop everything, we're moving there. And of course Cora, Lenny's mother, and his wife she's supportive, and she goes and they move up to Alaska and start an entire new life, and they clean up this really old cabin to live in, and they're learning how to exist in Alaska. And I feel like I've just become so intrigued by Alaska. The town that is in this book doesn't actually exist, but it's near a town called Homer. Was it Homer or Homestead? It was near a town that actually does exist. And I randomly just got really interested in researching facts about Alaska. I don't know. My brain was in a bad place after finishing this book, honestly. But I feel like I read this at such an interesting time because I feel like the weather has only now started to kind of have that drastic change, that temperature drop. It went from, we were in 60s at one point, and then we're in 30s at another. I mean, that's drastic for me anyway. And I think just reading this book and learning what an Alaska winter, just reading about an Alaskan winter has made me realize that I've got it good here and I should stop complaining. Another aspect of this book is that the father, he gets a lot worse during the winter, and during summer and spring he's a little bit more motivated and he's just a little bit more positive, but it gets dark in the winter. The actual weather and him, he's just a dark person, and he gets really bad nightmares in the winter. So this book honestly starts off really slow. The first 150 pages, it's of them moving, it's of them settling into the town and people telling them you have to get ready for an Alaskan winter, and they're helping them to prep their cabin and teaching them how to hunt and all these things, and just really, they're really emphasizing how you have to prepare for an Alaskan winter. And it almost now that I've read this entire thing, I've realized they had to prepare physically, and they had to prepare for all of the outside threats, but then they were going to be stuck in this cabin with this angry man that is so abusive, and they had to prepare in many ways, like many more ways than people even knew. And all those like warnings was almost, you don't even know that going hungry was like the least of their worries, you know? This book was definitely a hard one to get through. Like, I was feeling quite hopeless while reading it. It's a really good book, but I was just so sad. And I guess I just felt like there was literally gonna be no happy ending at all. But as I said earlier, that's just the Kristin Hannah way. She has to put you through it to get to a decent-ish ending. And that's not to say that all books need a happy ending. It's just after reading so many pages of what these people are going through, you just want it. So another thing about the father in this book is that he is always going off on tangents about the end of the world and when the government comes for us and the pandemic. Well, he was going off about a pandemic in like 1974, 1979, whatever it was. And I mean, maybe he had a point with that one, but the point is, he was just very paranoid about a lot of things, and he would argue about it at the most inappropriate times. And I can't tell you what those times are because those are spoilers, but there was one time he brought it up to try to pick a fight, and I almost lost my mind. He was so infuriating. There definitely came a point of this book where I just wanted to be done with him. I didn't want to hear from him anymore. I didn't want to hear about him. I didn't want to read about him anymore, but I did push through. Like, I had to know what happened to these people. I had to know how everything ended up. And there's so many factors that I'm not even mentioning. Like, there's so many different characters that I love that I'm not even mentioning, but you should go into the book, read it for yourself, and like see how they played a part in helping the entire family. They're so in their own world and they look out for each other, and I really loved that aspect of the bush. That's what they call it. That's what they call it. I don't call it that. They call it the bush. As much as I mentioned that it was slow for the first 150 pages, I think somewhere in the middle it definitely picked up, but it was also like very normal pace. Like, it was medium pace. This book went from slow pace to medium pace, and then like the last 200 pages, this book is like 545 pages. The last 200 pages of this book, literally like 9 life-altering things happened in the last 200 pages of this book, and I could not believe like how much was just happening back to back to back. Like, I'm not kidding. I sat down last night and counted how many things happened, like life-changing things. If even one of these things happened to me, I wouldn't even be able to cope. I would lose my mind. But I'm not kidding. 9 different things happens to these characters, happens at the end of this book, and I'm just like, wow. I don't know how else to explain that other than saying that the pacing was weird. Like, you can imagine reading a slow-paced book and then it picks up and you're like, okay, good. Like, this is the pace. This is how it's gonna go. And then you're hit with like 9 different life-changing things. It was definitely still really good though, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Last night, I thought I would finish this book today, and I couldn't put it down. I was literally like, one more chapter before I go and eat my dinner. Okay, one more chapter, constantly, and I ended up eating dinner so late because of this book. Finished it, and I was like, wow, a lot happened there. I do like how it wrapped up. There's so much more that I could say about each character, but that could probably get into spoiler territory. But yeah, you should go read The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah, especially if you've read other books by Kristin Hannah and you do enjoy her writing, you enjoy her stories, you know that there's gonna be some sadness in there. I definitely recommend this one. And even if you haven't read any Kristin Hannah books, I don't know if I would start with this one. I haven't read a lot of her books to say which one to start with, but this is my second one. I read True Colors first, then I read this one, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it 4.5. And the reason for that is, I already said, start off really slow. I was kind of like contemplating putting it down and like soft DNFing it, but I didn't. So that's one thing, started off really slow, and the second thing is that the pacing was like so weird. It almost felt like it was rushed at the end, even though I know that might have just been the way like it might have been intentional, it might have been like a writing device, especially considering the fact that this book is like written in chunks of time. You have 19, I think it starts in like 1974, and then like that's a chunk of it, and then it goes up to like 1986, and like that's the last chunk of it. Like that could be the reason why everything felt like it happened so fast, because it technically didn't. It happened over lots of years. Just sitting down and binging it the way that I did, it felt like it happened so fast. So that could be up and down for anyone. I definitely think it's a weird pacing thing. Some people could read this and think that's way too rushed, and some people may absolutely love it, like just love sitting and binging it and seeing what happens. So I think it just depends on how you feel about it, but I am taking off 0.5 for that. So yeah, that's what I'm rating The Great Alone, 4.5 stars. And I also decided that I liked this one a little less than True Colors, which was the first Kristin Hannah book that I read, because this is more so just like a personal thing. With that one, I had more hope. That book also kind of has this like theme of it's so sad, and I'm like taken around the ringer, and then we get like a slightly happy ending. But I felt more hope with that book than this one. This one I was just like, everyone's gonna die. That's not a spoiler at all, by the way, because I was just being paranoid. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna shut up about this book now. And truly, this book is probably the main reason why I decided to do a reading wrap-up. So sorry if this section was way too long for you. I needed to talk about it with someone. If you've read this book, tell me how you feel about it. If it's on your TBR, go read it now and then tell me how you feel about it. I'd love to know. I just had to take a break because of how much I just talked about The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. Anyway, on a completely opposite spectrum, for so many reasons, the next book I'm going to talk about is The Striker by Anna Huang. I read that on my Kindle, and it's like so far from the last book because I loved the last book and kind of hated this one. And then it's also just different in many other ways. This book is about a ballerina who doesn't perform anymore because she had an injury, and a soccer player, football player, whatever you call it. I don't even know what to say because nothing really happens. This book is so damn long. Or is it that nothing really happens, or nothing was really that memorable for me to talk about? Here's my beef with Anna Huang. Of like all of the kind of authors, the romance authors who I feel like have blown up because of TikTok that has like these series, like I would put her in the category with Lauren Asher and Elsie Silver. You know what I'm talking about, like those kind of authors. I feel like Anna Huang is the only one who's like not really improving in any way, or she's not doing anything different. All of her books just have this like really cliche tone, and I'm not saying that that's like horrible, but I wish that she could do a little more. I wish she could do something unique. For example, Lauren Asher, and I'm not even saying like Lauren Asher's books are the most unique books in the world, but I feel like there's such an obvious improvement when it comes to her series. Like the first one she ever did was like the one about Formula One, Dirty Air, something like that. That one's pretty bad. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's pretty bad, especially compared to her others. And you see a huge difference in her writing. The way that she writes a character, you see a huge difference in that first series and like the Dreamland Billionaire series, which is her second series. I just don't feel like I see that kind of thing with Anna Huang happening. And I also feel like I see it with Elsie Silver. I look at the series that they have, I feel like they've all made some slight improvements, or I personally have enjoyed their next series more than their last, and that's just not the case with Anna Huang. Like the Twisted series I read very early into my like getting back into reading, and they were great books to get me back into reading. They're very fast paced and like these like fun cliche books, and that's the kind of thing that works when you're just getting back into reading. And then I feel like what is it called? Kings of Sin, her second series. She's just like doing the same thing. It's literally nothing new, nothing special. And there's gonna be 7 books in that series. The first 4 of them, well, the first 3 of them, I read them fully through. The first one, which is about Dante and some girl, it's Marriage of Convenience. It was kind of interesting, and I feel like I read that close to the time that I read the Twisted series, so I was more intrigued. Lost interest a lot with the second book because the male main character of that book was just really boring. It was like forbidden love or something because she worked at this exclusive club for rich people and he was a member of the club, and that was forbidden. And then the third one, I actually kind of liked the third one the most. Mostly just like, it's a second chance. I love a second chance. He was like fighting for his marriage, and there was a part of the book where they went to Brazil, which was, I don't remember what city in Brazil, but they went to Brazil, and that was fun. It was that was something different than her usual. Like everything else about her books is just so, I don't know. She just doesn't wow me. And I've read so many at this point. And the thing about it is, oh, I was gonna say the 4th book in that series, that one, I started reading it and I was like, I can't do this. And I kind of just skimmed it. And I didn't even like put it as read on Goodreads towards like my reading goal or anything, because I truly just skimmed it and I know like the basis of what happens, obviously. That one was so bad. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I think I'm done with Anna Huang. But then The Striker came out and somehow I was intrigued. I'm my own enemy. I don't know why I was so intrigued. People were talking about it. I kept seeing it in Barnes and Noble. I don't know. FOMO got the best of me, I guess. And this one was just no different. It was just all so disappointing. You know how people talk about Hallmark movies and how you just like know what to expect and they're kind of all just like recycled plots? I've never really watched a Hallmark movie, but I do have experience watching Lifetime movies with my mom growing up, and that's the basis of it. Like, so many of those plots are the same thing with different people with different actors, different like settings, but the main plots are there's just so recycled. Like, you will always find a man cheating on his wife and then the mistress becomes crazy and threatens the wife and kids or something. That's a popular one. There's another one that's like, oh, student teacher's a popular one, or like a woman getting stalked by a lover. Like, recycled plots. And that is literally just Anna Huang's, but like cliche. You've just seen it before. And this is not to say that those things aren't entertaining. I love a good Lifetime movie, and I also love a good cliche book sometimes. I don't know, Anna Huang just isn't doing it right for me. And that's like the main point, like, you should take from it. For me, if you loved it, good for you. Or if you want to read it, go ahead. I'm not recommending it though. Again, went off on another tangent. I rated this book 2.75 stars, and honestly, I can't remember why. I can't remember for the life of me what about it deserved 2.75, because nothing was really memorable, and the way that I'm feeling about it, looking back on it now, I could have easily given this 1 star. But clearly, something in the moment I did like, so I ended up giving it 2.75. It might be for you. Definitely wasn't for me. Another thing about this book is it's unnecessarily long. Like, do these people have to reach a page count? Like, do they get more money for the more pages that they write? Because it just doesn't make sense why the most boring characters need 500 pages long of a boring romance. Like, I can easily enjoy a long book, but sometimes we just need to accept that they do not need to be this long. Romance books can wrap up so nicely in like 380 pages. I remember I was looking at Emily Henry's page count on all of her books, and I'm pretty sure all of her books range from like 360 pages to 385 pages. I don't think she has a single book over 385 pages. She knows what she's doing. Abby Jimenez, I think Abby Jimenez has definitely hit the 400 mark, but I don't think she goes into like 500 page territory. Again, she knows what she's doing, because a romance book doesn't need to be that long. And the crazy thing about it is that Abby Jimenez and Emily Henry both have better characters. Like, these people, definitely not worth 500 pages. I feel like I didn't even go into detail about what this book is about because just not much happens. But basically, the issue with the two main characters dating is that the female main character, her brother, is on the same team as the male main character and they hate each other. And so it's almost like a little forbidden thing too. Also, I feel like the next book in this series, if you see me reading it after all that rant, just close your eyes, because the next book sounds kind of interesting. It's about her brother and this girl that was like introduced, but I hope FOMO doesn't get me. I hope I actually ignore the next one, and just because even though I'm slightly intrigued, I know it's gonna disappoint me. I say all that to say that I don't recommend it, but read it if you want. Moving on to Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. Again, very different from The Striker by Anna Huang. This book is about a woman who transcribes therapy transcripts for a sex therapist, and she kind of lives in this she lives in Hudson, and it's described as like this small town where everyone knows everyone and everyone knows everyone's business. And so when she's listening to the transcripts and then she goes out into the world and just has her everyday life, she could like put the voices, she could like connect to the voices, and she just knows everyone's business. And she's also just very unprofessional. She has signed an NDA, but she talks about everyone's business with her roommate. Going off of the fact that she is so unprofessional, she also kind of becomes really obsessed with this one patient, and she meets her at a dog park and she pretends to be someone else. She pretends not to know her so that they could get to know each other, and whatever, she becomes obsessed. Honestly, after I read this entire book, and I still don't even know if she's really in love with her. Maybe, but she just more so seems very obsessive. Like, I don't even know if I would say like, yeah, she falls in love with her. I don't know about that. She just becomes crazy. This is a very interesting book, and people like, this is described as like wild, hilarious, so good, and darkly comic. It's definitely all of that, but one thing I will say is that it gets really, really intense, because both of the main characters, the one that she calls Big Swiss and also the main character who is transcribing the sessions, they both have such dark pasts. Like, the things Big Swiss is going to therapy for is just, it's really dark. And then we kind of also learn about how the transcriber like grew up and probably all the reasons why she is the way that she is. Yeah, very, very dark stuff in here, but it's not in a way like The Great Alone that like made me feel hopeless. It was more so in a way that I could read this and I could then close the book and be fine with it. I feel like I was closing The Great Alone and being sad about the book still. Also, I had a nightmare after reading that book, but you know, we're not gonna get into it. I had a nightmare about my parents, actually. Like, my parents weren't doing anything like the parents in this book, but it was still a nightmare about my parents nonetheless. So clearly that book affected me really bad. This one didn't. I recommend this book a lot. I think it was so good. There were so many things that I annotated in here. I absolutely loved it. I remember when I was reading this story, I was just getting so lost in it. I wasn't thinking about the transcriber like getting caught in what she's doing, because obviously what she's doing is not right. It goes against her NDA. And I think the way that it wrapped up and the way that it ended was just so like crazy for me, because I just was not thinking ahead at all, and I was like, whoa. I really did enjoy this book, and I ended up rating it 4.75 stars. I think the only reason I took off a little there is because Greta, which is the transcriber, she had these like inner monologue moments that I didn't love. So 4.75, and I feel like you should go read this, but also check the trigger warnings. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about Heartstopper 3. I feel like the goal for today is to just talk about completely opposite books one after the other, because this is really not the order of which I read them. I think I read this book, this was the first book I read in the month. But yeah, Heartstopper is this series about Nick and Charlie, who is just navigating life as two boys in secondary school being gay, because it wasn't common at their school. Nick was known to be like, actually, I get them confused sometimes. Which one's Nick and which one's Charlie? Charlie is like known at their school for being the first person to come out as openly gay. So you kind of just see their entire journey of falling in love, and the way that Charlie coped with being out to his school wasn't really touched upon in the first two books. Like, it didn't go into details like how he felt and how he like dealt with it, and you get a lot more of that, and just like seeing his anxieties and his insecurities. And this one got a little bit deeper than I expected, and I actually teared up a little bit reading this one. The first two were like cute, this is just cute. One was cute too, but it was more so like my heart was ripped open because I felt so bad for Charlie. But yeah, Nick is also like navigating his coming out to everyone. Their friends are coming together to support them and all of that, and it's a great series, and I feel like I just need to buy the other two of them and just like finish it already. At first I wanted to like read it slowly, but now I just need to know what happens. And I kind of thought that this series was over, but I think that there's another book coming out. Like, it's 5 of them that's out now, and I think there's a 6th one coming out, which I don't like to be left hanging, so I don't like that. Oh, I rated this 5 stars. I don't know what else to rate these books other than 5 stars. Like, I have no notes, no complaints. So yeah, 5 stars for Heartstopper 3. What should I talk about next? Ugh. I don't want to talk about Out on a Limb. Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam-Young. Very loved by many, except me. This book is about Win and Bo. I always forget his name. Win and Bo, they meet at a Halloween party, and they just like have a one-night stand, and she ends up pregnant. None of this is a spoiler. She ends up pregnant, and obviously she has to tell him, I'm having your baby. So they spend the next 9 months together. They're like really mature about it, and they are putting the baby first. Like, they think they shouldn't get involved because if anything happens, it could just mess things up for the baby, and I respect that a lot. I just feel like it made for a boring book. Actually, I feel like that it was going in the right direction, but there just wasn't that much tension. There wasn't that many like secret moments, you know, like in a slow burn there's all these like secret moments, these like tension filled moments. There was none of that because these two people were just boring, and a lot of this book like was just Win's inner monologue. If this book would have served being a dual point of view, because I wanted to get out of Win's head, a lot of this was just her inner monologue, and it was just like, that's not entertaining to me. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that Win has a limb difference and Bo has a prosthetic leg, and that's kind of something that they both like open up to each other about, and like how it's affected their lives and how like their worries when it comes to the child. And I think those parts and those conversations were so heartwarming, and I loved those parts. And that's another reason why, one, I wanted Bo's point of view, because I would have loved to hear Bo's story from Bo's point of view and how he was feeling his own anxieties. But instead we just got Win and her inner monologue. It was just like, get me out of this lady's head, please. But I did also enjoy her story too. It was just too much of her. What else did I not like? I didn't really like the friends in this book. They were annoying. Me saying that there was too much inner monologue and not enough dialogue, not enough conversation between the two, not enough moments. The thing is, the dialogue that was in this book, unless they were talking about a serious thing, like, I really enjoyed the conversation where she told him she was pregnant and that he was going to be a father. That conversation was really heartwarming, and it revealed a lot about him and his past. And then there was a conversation that she had with his father, also revealed so much about his past. Again, so heartwarming. Those are like 3 seeds total, and other than that, all their conversations are so cringy to me. I just didn't really enjoy this. And I also gave this 2.75 stars. The 2.75 is for the fact that I actually like the characters. I think that they're great characters. I think that this book just took a wrong direction for me. Like, the idea was there, it just wasn't executed well, in my opinion. The ending, I remember like the last 70 pages. I didn't enjoy that part. Yeah, that's what the 2.75 stars are for. Other than that, did not like it. Sorry. I completely forgot to grab Daydream by Hannah Grace when I was getting all the books, but I also read this month. This is the third book in the like Icebreaker Maple Hills, the Maple Hills series, but it's the series with Icebreaker. Didn't read the second book, Wildfire, so I have everything that I know about that book is just like from here, like learning about Aurora and stuff. So I read Icebreaker, skipped Wildfire, read this. So this book follows Hallie and Henry, and Hallie struggles a lot with being a people pleaser, and Henry struggles with the need to disappear when he's overwhelmed. I understand him. I get him. I don't get Hallie, but I get him. So Hallie's basically trying to write a romance novel, and Henry like helps her to have these experiences so that she can write this novel. She's felt like she can't complete this book because she doesn't have any real life experiences when it comes to romance, and just overall when it comes to like her friendships and stuff like that, because she was just constantly thinking about everyone else, make sure everyone else was okay, and she just doesn't have any experiences for herself, and she felt like she couldn't write a book without any experiences. So Henry's helping her a lot with that, and that's kind of how their friendship form, and that's a lot of what they're doing throughout this book. But this book is just, I feel like if you liked Icebreaker, you would like this one too. It's like a bunch of college kids just kind of hanging out, and I feel like one thing that I loved about Icebreaker is that there was great communication. There was great communication in this one too. I love that part, and I love Henry. I love the characters in this book. I felt like it was fun to just like follow them along and seeing all of the other characters come back in. I feel like a found family is always solidified throughout a series. Like, it gets more solidified as the books go on, but I feel like that's something Hannah Grace kind of did since Icebreaker. There was always this huge friend group, and I love that part of Icebreaker, and it's in this book too. It was a fun read, a really quick, easy read with some emotional, heartwarming moments. I will say that I do feel like somewhere at the end it was dragging just a little bit. Like, this book it's 427 pages, and I think maybe it could have been like 380 pages instead. Like, nothing crazy, but it definitely was dragging just a tiny bit. But I think that was a big complaint with Icebreaker too. Like, maybe that's just Hannah Grace's thing. She has a lot to say, and that's okay. I rated this book 4.25 stars. Not sure what I took off the star. Oh, I remember I was getting a little bit frustrated, like seeing how much of a people pleaser Hallie was. Like, I really do feel sorry for people pleasers because I cannot relate in any way. I think reading about it was just slightly frustrating, so that's, again, personal problem. It was still a great book. 4.25 stars. If you love Icebreaker, definitely read this. And I feel like if you loved Icebreaker, you're probably waiting for Henry's book anyway. The last book that I'm going to talk about, I read this one actually in between reading The Great Alone because it was like getting too deep and dark. And this is actually a book that I am reading in an upcoming vlog, like reading holiday books. It's All I Want Is You by Falon Ballard. Sorry. And I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I'm going to yap a lot about it in the reading vlog. These two people are romance writers, and they also used to date. Something happened, they broke up, they hate each other, and well, she definitely hates him, and they're like rivals, enemies to lovers. They have to see each other again at this like award ceremony thing. She has to present him with his award, which is probably like the worst case scenario for her. They get stuck up there in a snowstorm. They're like in upstate New York. They get stuck up there in a snowstorm, and yeah, I think you could guess what happens from there. I liked it. I think it was fine. I rated it 3.25 stars. You can wait for all of my reactions in the vlog. And yeah, those are all the books that I read in November. November, yes. I don't know. I can't process the fact that it's the end. Like, today's the last day of November, like right now, and I can't process that state of my life. Like, how are we in December? These are all the books that I read, along with The Striker by Anna Huang. So now I'm gonna choose some books from my TBR, honestly just for fun, because doing these like jar things, it's fun. And I don't know how well I'm gonna like stick to it, because as I said, I really want to read my Christmas books. If I could pick one of them out of the prompts, that would be great. I doubt that it would happen though, because I didn't really plan to do this and I didn't write new prompts or anything. That's also why I'm like curious what I would even get. You can't really see the bottom here, but that's fine because that's kind of low priority anyway. They're down there for a reason. I'm gonna remove the ones that are unwrapped because I'm pretty sure those are the ones that I've used in the last videos. Okay, so a lot of them were actually unwrapped and there's not a lot of prompts in here. As I said, I really needed to like redo this, but you know what? I don't know how well I'm gonna read these books anyway, so let's just go with what we've got. I don't even know how much I'm choosing. Maybe like 4 or 5. Continue a series. Okay. This is definitely going on the TBR to continue a series. I actually want to do a video where I'm reading my like 2024 TBR, and this entire series was on my 2024 TBR, and seeing that this is on the TBR cart still, it means that I've only read one book out of the entire series, so this is definitely the choice. Actually, now that I'm doing this, kind of glad that I'm doing it. I definitely plan to read that in December though, so that's going well so far. Ow, get that one. A YA book. This is actually my worst nightmare. I'm not really feeling YA books right now, but the choices are Check and Mate, Betting on You by Lynn Painter, and Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I think I'm avoiding all of these books because I'm really not feeling YA right now. I'm definitely not feeling this one. I feel so many people have told me to read this one, but I don't know, I'm kind of not feeling it. I think I'm gonna go with Betting on You by Lynn Painter because I feel like I kind of want to read this closer to the release date of the third one, because I haven't heard many great things about this, but I did think I heard that it like leaves off at a cliffhanger, and I don't want to be waiting for too long. I hope to read that one a little bit closer to the time the third book is being released. So yeah, so we have 2 books so far, and Betting on You, I really don't know if I'm gonna get to it. Like A Court of, what is it even called? Mist and Fury, that one I'm like more confident. People on the Cover. Ooh, I could literally do any one of these. There's people, the Christmas books that I was talking about, literally any one of these. There's people on the cover of this one, The Christmas Orphan Club by Becca Freeman. There's people on the cover of Love Like Farms by B.K. Borison, and there's people on the cover of Most Wonderful by Georgia Clark. Honestly, let's put them all in there. I really want to get to all of these. Also, I already started doing my holiday reading vlog. Don't know which one I'm going to read next, as I already told you that I read All I Want Is You. I'm going to go with this one, Love Like Farms. I feel like this one's very loved by everyone, so I want to know. I want to know what it's all about. That was a good choice. Should I just leave it here? Okay, let's do one more and see how it goes. You see, when it's going well, I want to continue. If this one's bad, I'm going to stop. Reread a 5-star read. Honestly, I recently put Book Lovers by Emily Henry and Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino back on my physical TBR. Like, took it off a shelf, put it back on the TBR cart because I really want to reread these 2 books. I don't know if I'll like do it before the year ends. We have 1 more month, you know? I just want to vibe in December and read whatever. So why am I doing a TBR jar? I don't know, it's fun. But if I were to choose, I think I would do Before Restraints. I've been itching to like read this recently, so I'm gonna choose that one. Okay, one last one. Okay, last one. The last book you purchased. This is once again all the Christmas books that I did in my last, I hauled in my last video. This is working out perfectly. I'm gonna put the Christmas Orphans Club on there because this is the one that I was thinking against Love Light Farms. That worked out perfectly. Okay, now I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead because I don't know if the universe is gonna continue loving me. So these three I'm a little bit more confident about getting to, and these two I'm unsure. Like A Court of Mist and Fury, as I said, really want to like get through my 2024 TBR, and any of the books that I do have physically, I should just read them, right? And then I'm doing a holiday reading vlog, so Love Light Farms and the Christmas Orphans Club. Definitely a chance I'll get to these. And then these two, we'll just have to see what happens. Betting on You by Lynn Painter. Lynn Painter has such like fun, easy reads. I feel like I could do it. And even though I'm not in a YA mood, I think Lynn Painter could be the one to like change that for me. And Before We're Strangers by Renee Carlino. Absolutely love this book, one of my favorite books of all time, so no one has to force me to read this one. I think the only thing is that time could run out. That's the only thing that could happen, but I really do want to get to all of these. And yeah, that's my December TBR. This was fun. I'm glad I did that. If you've read any of the books that I've talked about today, please let me know what your thoughts on them were. If you love them, hate them, I would love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!